So a real quick overview again of the agenda. We have, for today, we have a keynote speaker. We have a welcome speaker first, Joaquin, our chair of the board, Joaquin Esquivel. We have a keynote speaker, Mr. Moses West. We will take a quick break, and then following that, we'll have an EJ 411-911 panel that will include the keynote speaker. We'll then switch to our first session, which is the selected community perspectives. That'll take us all the way to lunch. We'll take a half-hour break for lunch. At session 2, we're going to talk about putting data to work. We'll take another 15-minute break after that, and then we'll have session 3, what's the deal with water quality, and then we'll adjourn at 4:15. Obviously, breaks are at your own pace as well throughout the day. I want to talk a little bit real quickly about the quail. People might wonder why we chose the quail, but it was a pretty awesome experience of arriving at this quail this year. Some of you may recall that we've had a bear in the past as one of our icons for the event. But after doing some research and thinking about it, this turned out to be really awesome. So this graphic is going to be shared in the Slack channel. And this is a graphic done by Audie Lee Brown, who is one of our partners on this. And it's an amazing sort of collection of some of the logic behind the quail, the symbology behind the quail, as well as some of the goals and the passion that has come to the planning of this event and the many years that we've worked on this. So we are going to be joined by Audie all day today. She will be illustrating the recording of the event, of today's activities and the engagement that we're having. She'll be doing this in a way that you can watch it too. So go to the Slack channel and you should be able to have access to some of the videos throughout the day, as well as some of the products as they become available. But this is a really unique opportunity that we have thanks to the West Big Data Innovation Hub and the NSF funding that is made available to do better engagement on data throughout the country. So this is thanks to Meredith Lee and Audie for their talent and the sort of forever value of a poster like this. In fact, this is a poster, a wall-size poster, and I'm wondering if we should auction it off for charity at the end. But we'll deal with that later. So with that, I want to hand it over to our esteemed honorable chair, Joaquin Esquivel of our board. And I'm going to put myself on mute, and the floor is yours, Joaquin.
Thank you so much, Greg. And just really want to start off by thanking everyone. The incredible amount of collaboration that has gone into this year's Water Data Symposium is really, I think, a reflection of the continued importance of this discussion. You look at decision-making in the state, you look at the work that we as a board does on water quality, administering water rights, ensuring provision of clean and safe drinking water, and all of that work is always premised off of data, good information. And so this symposium, bringing together so many of the fantastic organizations that we have the pleasure to work with in this space, is really I want to just be incredibly thankful to Greg and the staff and everyone and their participation. Again, data is so critical and core, and the continued democratization of that data, continuing to ensure that we as caretakers at the water boards do well by that whole continuum of the collection of data, the dissemination of data, and more importantly, the transformation of data into information. And then decision makings on some of the most challenging issues that we face when we talk about managing our water resources. I feel very fortunate that I know that the board isn't alone in its work, insofar as we have the Department of Water Resources and other incredible agencies on the state side who are partners in this discussion as well. And so there, I also want to thank the Water Quality Monitoring Council and Nick, your incredible leadership in that role, where it is about the combined efforts of us as state governments to better understand, again, the goals and outcomes that we're trying to achieve in our watersheds, but more importantly, the goals and outcomes that our communities are wanting to see, and translating those into the work that we do on a daily basis in government. I think that we can all be candid and reflect that there is perhaps not the greatest faith currently in government, and that there is a crisis, I think, in that faith. But I think it's also an opportunity to continue to build these collaborations, continue to ensure that we're having discussions with communities around what communities are facing and the challenges that they see, and ensuring that our programs are responsive to those needs and those outcomes first and foremost. We at the board, as I reflected, have a pretty broad purview on water quality and water rights and drinking water. And so how we continue to make those decisions, how we actively go into communities to best synthesize their understandings, their experiences, and their wisdom and information makes us better decision makers. And I'll just say that the complexity of our work sometimes doesn't lend itself well to easy public understanding of some of the discussions that may be going on, and the opportunities to engage in those discussions, to add to those discussions, and to help build for us the best decision making that we can. So again, this symposium, this couple of days, the variety and passion that you will hear from a number of our panels gives me great hope. I'm fortunate to be chair of the board at a time when, again, I think it's particularly important that we continue to connect our work to communities, continue to reflect upon the history and the arc of our work, which is a 50-year history at this point for the state boards when it comes to Port of Cologne and how we were created, and how the state of California has chosen to best regulate and try to improve the quality of its waters, both at the watershed and at the drinking water level. And so again, want to express my great gratitude. I don't want to take up too much time in this space because it's not about my reflection or my thoughts here, but really about the panels and the discussions that we'll be having over the next couple of days. So I'm really looking forward to participating and listening in and doing my best to be accountable in this space. So any questions that come up from folks, please feel free to submit them on the Slack channel. I'm in the middle of getting myself signed up right now. And what I would like to do is now hand it back over to Greg, and more importantly, to Moses, who will be providing us further keynote inspiration here. Again, I'm just here to kind of babble on a bit, but really hopefully communicate to you that at a very high level, from the chair of this board, from I know the commitment to our fellow board members to this discussion is one, again, of continuing to broaden it, continue to democratize so much of the decision making that happens at the board, and that these forums, the work that goes around data science, and continuing to create a pipeline of data scientists that will be coming to the board and working with us on these complicated challenges and reflective of the communities we represent. You know, these are core values that I hold as the chair of this board, and I know that many of my fellow board members, if not all, to one of them, also share. And I know it's shared by our colleagues in the programs who are day in, day out implementing so much of the work that we do. So just thank you again, and I'll hand it back off to Greg. I'll be sticking around again after Moses gives his presentation or his discussion in Keynote. I'll be following up with folks and answering anything that you may have for me as well. But again, just looking forward to participating over the next couple of days.
Thank you, Joaquin. That was great. And I forgot to mention that we have over 800, we achieved over 800 registrations this morning. So that's huge. I mean, I'm so blown away, and I know it has to do with the content, the people. It's our next speaker in particular that I think is drawing a lot of attention. People are super excited to hear from you. So with that, I'd like to introduce Mr. Moses West. He is the founder of AWG Contracting, and he's going to tell you some stories that are going to really blow your mind. And with that, take over, Moses.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear my audio good?
You sound great.
Oh, thank you. Hey, I have to say thank you for this wonderful honor, and thank you for looking at the body of work that so many people have contributed to over the years of this. It's been a very hard scrabble fight to maintain this technology and to do what we do. And when I started, the first presentation material that I did, I sent to California, because California and Texas, I was so concerned about our water supply and a new source of water. And so I sent quite a bit of information to lots of folks out there when I was building up to this process of where I am today. And so I'm very honored to be your keynote speaker for the symposium. Greatly appreciated. I have to thank you all for that. And then have to thank the scientists out here in California and here in Texas as well, Southwest Research Institute, and the data that they would like to get from this, as well as Dr. Les Shepard and the folks over at Texas A&M. None of this has been done just by myself in a vacuum. So the process of getting water that we see today, I see that we've always known that we've had 3 sources of water. It comes in 3 forms. And the water comes in the form of, it comes in a liquid, it comes in a solid, and it comes in a gas. And what we did was, over time, we found the easiest way to get water. And that was our groundwater, our surface water, and desalinization. But the superhighway of water has always been the atmosphere, where our water travels around. That's how it gets everywhere on this planet. Holds quadrillions of gallons of water. So when we talk about we're having a drought or that we have a lack of water, we actually do not have a lack of water. What we do have is we have water that we're walking around in, that we use advancements in science to extract, as we do with anything else. As we extract a high cost, high value item of oil from the ground by increasing the fracking technology, how we advance and move further into space by advancing technology. Well, here on Earth, using technology to advance the humankind is what I've done with this technology. I found the way to pull moisture out of the air in a way that is lower than the cost of pumping groundwater. And with further developments, we can actually pull enough moisture out of the air to support, and especially in the equatorial zones around the world, support industry, support homes, support towns, support aquaponic food production, hydroponic food production, and it can all be done on solar power. So everyone will say, well, how do you know this is possible? Well, I manufactured 2 machines for the United States Army, large machines, the 5,000 liter units. They can do up to over 2,000 gallons of water a day. They come in a 20-foot ISO container. So how do you know this is possible? Well, the unit sat on a military base, and I did a lot of work with the military. I sell these smaller units, the home units, to the military still to this day. But these larger units, they seem kind of intimidating. So when Hurricane Maria hit in Puerto Rico, I had the unit sitting there at the base, and I started a foundation, and I pulled enough money into the foundation to actually move one of those 5,000 liter units to Puerto Rico and put it on talk with the Veterans Administration, and we put it on the island of Vieques in Puerto Rico. People trolled me pretty hard in the very beginning. They said it wasn't possible. The people on the internet were just chopping me up. It was kind of hilarious because I was making hundreds of thousands of gallons on this military base for years, and nobody knew what I was doing. But some folks over at KVUE in Austin and the City Council of Austin found out what I was doing, and they came over there, and we started talking and having some good conversations about it. But when I put that machine on the island of Vieques, we started out slow. We started out with maybe 50 people a day. We're running it on a diesel generator. And then when the word started getting around, people started coming around more. And by the end of that entire mission in Puerto Rico, we were running on solar power from a Tesla solar array at the hospital. I got raised $7,000 more, and I shipped a cable over there, the high power cable, because it runs on 460 volts, 460 to 480. But the solar power battery, the Tesla array was putting out 500 volts, but the machine handled it quite well. So when we left, we were on a federal reservation at a hospital. The water generator, I saved over 10,000 gallons in a separate water tank that I found on the other side of the island, stored with some FEMA and Department of Homeland Security gear that was sitting in a field with generators and everything else that you could imagine that no one was using. So being military resourceful, I got with the FEMA director and I got Louis Berger to tow the trailer over there. So in my spare time, I added some hours to my day, working the generator, giving out water. We ended up, when FEMA did the report, supporting over 5,000 people on a regular basis with one water generator and one man working it. I was the only person that worked it the entire time I was there. And then some other foundations, Open World Relief and Ben Watsky and Janice Stone, they came over, and Janice Stone actually stayed out and helped for a few weeks. And that was it. And we supplied an entire island with water. And then even people from the mainland of Puerto Rico, when they heard about this, they actually would get on the ferry boat with a pickup truck. I added some pictures of this in there as well. They would come across on a pickup truck. I would give them a few hundred gallons. They would go back to the mainland Puerto Rico with a pickup truck and hand water out. So this one machine with one person operating it, 2 people at one time for a few weeks, we supplied the entire island and a portion of Puerto Rico with water. If you had 100 of me or 1,000 of me, you wouldn't have had to ship any water into Puerto Rico at all. And what we did that on solar power. So the proof is there. It's already been done. And that's the first time that it was done. The second time that we've done it is in operation right now. We're in Flint, Michigan. The machine's in Flint, Michigan. It's in the possession of the people in the 4th Ward in Flint, Michigan. Then thank you to Dr. LaToya Ruby Frazier. She's been footing this bill, and the Robert Rauschenberg Foundation, and my personal money has been supporting that mission in Flint. And now we're starting a new foundation, the Moses West Foundation, where all of my all of the ingenuity and all the patents and everything that I have, everything that I do from now until I'm not part of this earth anymore, will go into that foundation, so that everyone will still have access to it, and keep it in the hands of the public and not in the private industry. So right now, the second mission is going on in Flint right now, and we started that. It was a very proud day to do it on. It was on June 10th was the day that we actually switched it on and started giving water back to the residents of Flint. So we've proven now that the atmosphere is a source of water, and I've got these examples the 2 examples that I'm very proud of, and that are functioning better than trucking in bottled water. And I'll leave it open to questions, because I've got more stories to tell, but it's all positive things. I'll add that people in Flint who could not move into their houses for 5 years because they didn't have clean water to clean their houses, we gave a woman one day 500 gallons of water. She went home, she cleaned her house, she came back, and she just was crying because we gave her enough water so that she didn't have to be homeless anymore or live with other people to move into her house. LaToya Ruby Frazier has the documented recordings of people whose lives have been changed. And the same in Puerto Rico. People come and they tell you that you saved our lives with the technology. And how this is so important to you in California and to the data scientists. All of this data and all of this engineering and the water quality, I have the reports from the Lower Colorado River Authority here, but to regain the trust of the people in the neighborhoods who've been disenfranchised, the scientists are so important. You data scientists that make the reports and look at the energy consumption and then the comparisons, it's so important to keep the people informed. And that's why the marriage of what I do and what you do is so important. And I'm so happy to be a part of this with you engineers. And hopefully at the end of this, you can meet the engineers that I work with here in the state of Texas. It's just a great bunch of folks.
That's great, Mr. West. Thank you very much. I have a quick question for you. Can you run through the energy consumption? And I know you have a slide about it. Maybe Nick, you can put that slide up and just run through what you know about the energy consumption. You did make the statement that it's less than pumping groundwater, and I'm sure that depends on how deep the groundwater and things are. But
exactly. Right now, the most the least energy that I've pulled is 0.08 kilowatts for a liter of water. So when I first started this in the state of Texas, and we had to go through the process with the Texas Commission of Environmental Quality, Texas A&M, and the Texas Military Forces, and I'll never forget that briefing. I was dying on the vine trying to teach scientists about PhDs about the hydrologic cycle, and oh my goodness, I'll never forget. And so we got to the slide where the old things that I was working with would pull 0.12, and then all of a sudden the scientists, the engineers in the room who were just sitting there yawning just stopped, and I was trying to fit through the slides and get out of there, and they were all, go back, screaming, go back to that slide. So we went back to that slide. So here in the state of Texas, I found out that our groundwater is 0.12 kilowatts to pull it out of the ground. And they said, and a little bit more, and they said, if you can do that, then we're interested. And that's how it all got started, right when I was trying to run out of the door. And so when we designed the machines, there was another way. You don't waste anything in the machine. So what I did was I figured out a way to pull air in and then not use that, not send out cold air or send out heat. I use everything, and I got it down to 0.08. And one time, there's a little meter on the machine, on the unit. I pulled a 0.05, and so your power, your energy consumption is directly related to how much humidity or moisture is in the air and how hot it is outside. So if it's extremely hot outside and there's a lot of moisture in the air, the PLC of the machine, there's a program in it that tracks temperature and humidity. And so when those are high, the machine doesn't have to work that hard because the dew point is easy to catch. So the machine powers up and powers down and is always thinking. So the higher the humidity and the higher the temperature, the lower the energy consumption. But then I even came up with another way to do it, and it's in the Generation 3 machines, where now this whole process is expandable. It's expandable. I think I sent you a slide of that. And what I mean by expandable is if I build a 50,000 square foot building, I can increase some non-mechanical parts, and I can make the entire roof of that building on the inside rain. So basically 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100,000 gallons a day from one fixed structure. And with the larger it gets, what we've seen is the lower the energy consumption goes down because you're increasing only the size of non-mechanical parts. I've had a lot of time on my hands to think about this stuff.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I love your stories. I wonder if you have any additional stories that you could share, like personal connection stories, whether it's Puerto Rico or Flint or even somewhere else.
Oh, definitely. When I arrived in Puerto Rico, I met people. I was standing there. I'm still I don't like to go too deep into some of the stories because still it's to immerse myself into that. It's the same way as I immersed myself into what I did in the military. There's a recovery process that it breaks your heart, and I'm passionate about what I do, and I'm passionate about helping the people. And so some of these stories are very sensitive. But in the very beginning there in Puerto Rico, I was standing in the parking lot, and there was a gentleman, and I met him and his wife and his baby. And they came by every day. I was training him, and he was just walking down the street, and he just died. I was standing in the parking lot, and people were dying there in Vieques. I'm trying to get this water as fast as I can, and people are dying from waterborne diseases around me. And then when people finally would come up and they would tell me, you saved my life, I had a hard time grasping that in the very beginning. And after time, I started to accept that. But to watch some of the things and the suffering in some of the places I've been, even in Flint, the people are just so grateful for what you do. It's like the lady that got to move back into her house. People who were that were drinking toxic water in Flint, who are cognitively challenged when they're consuming something that's not good for them, and then to stand there. And one woman, she couldn't carry a gallon of water home. She couldn't carry a gallon. So the folks that were helping in Flint, I said, hey, would you please help her carry this water home with her? So they walked with her, carried home. And after it's about maybe a week, she came back and she carried a gallon home by herself. A few days later, she came back, she carried 2. By the time we left, she could carry 3 gallons of water home. 3 of the 3-gallon jugs by herself. And these are the kinds of things that you see. And then we were passing out water one day, and there was some people bring their children up, and you can see the degradation of the lead, what the lead has done to their cognitive abilities. Oh. And it's very disheartening to see that. And then the number of people that you give water to that actually they can see the difference in the change in their lives just from having such a clean source of water.
Wow, that's intense. Thank you for sharing that. We have a couple of questions. I'm gonna read one to you if you're okay with that.
Oh, please.
Okay. So this one is from one of our partners, Meredith Lee. She says, first, amazing work. Thank you so much for sharing and joining today. Wondering what advice you have to help strengthen collaboration across people working together for the first time, particularly around water data.
I don't think I know. You have to meet face to face. You have to do work together with your hands, sitting in the same room, talking with people, spending a time with the people that you work with, and getting to know them on a personal level, how they feel about things, the traits about this person, what they go through in their daily lives. We've gotten to a point where we've put so much distance in between each of us that we no longer have this emotional connection, which is so important to have. You must have that to succeed in anything that we do today, because the people that we were going to work with in that neighborhood, most people, they're sometimes very disenfranchised, or they're very cliquish in that one area, but they communicate with each other in this way that we used to all of the time. And that's what we have to do. Learn to communicate with each other better, face to face.
So I have a follow-up. I wondered, have you had thoughts about what we do differently now, even with the COVID and this idea of connecting and emotional understanding of each other has gotten harder, but what has happened in your world with the pandemic and the sort of shelter in place that's happening? Maybe not as much in Texas, but.
Quite a bit with me, to tell you the truth. I didn't let anyone know for the past year, but I had cancer, and I just had a very successful surgery back in March, and but I was also positive with the COVID virus at the same time. Wow. So I survived that. The doctors were kind of amazed that I was still alive, but I'm pretty tough, I guess.
Wow.
And then I've gone through a round 2 of being infected with a virus because I had to go out and do things and work. I work with my hands, I work with big machinery, and people are always going to need water. So I don't recommend for anybody to get the virus, but I've survived it twice now. And when it's critical for us to do things to help people, there's a sacrifice that I made in the military where I could lose my life over many things that sometimes I didn't actually believe in. but I do have an honor to my country and to my Constitution to obey the laws of the military and to defend that Constitution. But now I've directed that energy to defending the rights of disenfranchised people and people that need water. So that for me, it's a sacrifice that I'm willing to take, and I have to do that. But if it's non-critical, do whatever you have to do on social media and Skype, the way that we're doing this now to maintain our safety. But more people will be lost if I don't provide them with the technology that gives them water. And that information will be lost to you, even if I have a short period of time to work now to get it done and to make sure that you have this knowledge, because that's my mission and that's what I have to do. So each person has to weigh that out for themselves. But I've weighed it out for me.
Absolutely incredible. Well, congratulations, and I'm glad you're here with us, obviously. So I have some technical questions I'm going to roll through. One is from Allison McNally, and Allison wants to first say this is amazing work, but she was curious how long it takes to harvest water from a dry environment like a desert area versus a more humid area.
I'm glad you asked that question. Southwest Research Institute right now, at this very moment, have you heard there's a material called sorbent materials, and right now it's the big rush that everybody wants to use sorbent materials. Well, I've sat down and kind of figured out how to use a sorbent material and combine it with the technology that I build with the refrigeration cycle units systems to have them work in conjunction with each other. So if you're in a very dry environment, one thing you must remember that every time the sun goes down, if you're sitting outside and you only have 10% humidity and you're getting cooked by the sun, as soon as that sun goes down, the humidity shoots up. It happens all over the world, even in the desert. Because in the desert, you wake up and everything's covered in moisture. And that's how you get moisture, by using the little solar tent, the 4 rocks and the rock in the middle, dig a little hole, put your leaves in it, let it evaporate, you get a little cup in there, drops come down, there's moisture there. So using the sorbent materials in the desert in the combination with the technology that I do, Southwest Research Institute in the state of Texas, and let me tell you, I'm honored to be working with them. If only my school teachers could see me now. So the combination of those two in the desert, you got it made. This is not hard anymore. I've been doing this for so long. It's not hard, but having the scientists such as yourself and the folks that do the data working with you makes it even easier.
Absolutely. Okay, we have another question from one of our speakers later today, Rich Palou. Rich asked, Moses, great presentation and truly incredible technology. He's a hydrologist that works here in the Central Valley, and the shallow domestic wells, there's thousands of them, tend to run dry. And they're also typically in more disadvantaged parts of our communities. So the state has paid a bunch of money to try to get the water delivered to some of these communities, but do you see any limitations to this technology in California's Central Valley? And this kind of goes to that humidity question, but it sounds like you already answered it. But have you ever been asked to help out, or do you see any limitations to Central Valley being a place to use this?
When we talk Central Valley, are we talking like the San Joaquin Valley?
Exactly.
Oh, hey, you have a fog out there in the valley that comes every year, right? If they call it the Tulare fog.
Yep.
You can't drive in it. It's so thick. I lived in California. I lived in Visalia for a few years.
Oh, yeah.
That fog, you walk outside and you just look at it, you just go back inside and get in bed. You're not going to drive in. It's like flying in a cloud. And what you're looking at is low-hanging water in the billions of gallons. That water is so easy to capture. If to answer your question, yes, you can. We are looking at something here in the state of Texas called ASR. That's called Aquifer Storage and Recovery. That's taking water and pumping it back into the ground, which is our best distribution system that we have. It's our best infrastructure that Mother Nature gave us. This underground cavernous system that we have all the water stored in. We live on top of it. We tend to contaminate it. But when pulling this moisture out of the air and pushing it back into the ground, that's completely possible. And especially when you go into the Generation 3 units that I've designed and that we're working with right now to see how large they can be, you can make gallons of millions of gallons a day. Easy in the valley with that fog.
Yes.
That's so easy.
Well, it must be other reasons that we're not doing it here in California then. So we have a question from one of our other partners. You may have even spoke to him, but Mr. Jay Davis has a question for you. He says, thank you for your important and innovative work. Everyone, by the way, is, when you go to your Slack channel afterwards, Moses, you're going to be blown away at the kind of praise and the kind of love that's being thrown at you from California. So, but Jay says, it seems like there is a huge potential to use this technology to get water to people who need it. I'm wondering about the cost of a unit and whether the costs would go down if you were making more of them.
Yes, most definitely. The unit cost that I have right now is the military cost that I have to have because I make sure that everyone who builds a piece of equipment for me here in the United States, I don't build overseas. I build right here. If you build a piece of equipment that I design, you have to have a living wage. I don't do that. The parts have to be made here in the United States, and I have to employ people that are veterans, women, handicapped, all across the board. And so the price of the unit is a little bit higher because I have to make them one at a time per each individual order. But with economy of scale, of course, if I'm making 1,000 units, the price goes down precipitously. And working with our Canadian partners, because we have so many Native American homelands here in the United States that have some of the worst water contamination and shortages of anyone else, of anyone here. And this technology is perfect for them. So working with the Canadians and here in Texas, the price of the units will definitely come down when I can make them, start to make them for everyone, especially if you want to grow your own food at home, have your own water, and have your home completely net zero, which I did in Puerto Rico.
Yeah, you're touching on so many important issues right now, and there's just so much need for this technology and this knowledge to be shared. So we're so grateful to having you here. There's another sort of comment and question about Puerto Rico and the sort of nexus between not just water scarcity, but water contamination. And and of course that's, the Flint story as well, and probably most of the tribal areas in the United States as well, and Canada for that matter. So do you have data on the water quality? I mean, I know it's atmospheric derived water, but have you run some analyses, and would you be able to share anything about that?
Oh, definitely. What I did was I posted on Slack. I posted a water quality report that was done at Camp Mabry military installation, and I also tested the machine for perfluorinated compounds, PFOA, and PFCs.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a big deal right now in the United States because we've all got a little bit of it in our systems, and we know how detrimental it is. So I ran those tests on the unit itself, and the water quality tests are done here in Texas by the LCRA, which stands for the Lower Colorado River Authority. They're a NELAP. So the water quality exceeds EPA standards and World Health Organization standards. And a short, funny story, when we were on the base and we were testing the water in the machine, the LCRA was there and the colonel and the general were standing there. And he goes, the engineer was looking down, the data scientist, water quality, And he took a little sample out. He was doing his little test. And then he says, hey, I need a benchmark. I have to test some water that's somewhere around here to compare the two. So he ran into the building. He's told the guy, go in the building and get me some out of the fountain in the building. So he went in, got the fountain water, came back outside. We're staying there for about another 30 minutes. The general looked down at him and he said, all right, so which water should we drink? He goes, drink the machine. So some of those little things like that's what makes me love my job. So the water quality reports are there. We got them all. It's hard to fail them.
That's fantastic. That's a great story. Well, thank you very much for your time. And I know that you're very busy and fighting cancer and all sorts of amazing stuff. So thank you very much. I really, really appreciate you coming and sharing your stories with us today, Mr. West.
Oh, I greatly appreciate y'all having me, but do me a favor. Right now, I've got to support that mission in Flint, and until my foundation is completely up and running, that mission's ongoing right now. So financial support for that mission that's in Flint until that 501c3 is up and running is extremely important. And hats off to LaToya Ruby Frazier for her support for that mission. But I can't continue to do these things and pay for it out of my own pocket and from my friends and from my own company. So if anybody feels like donating right now, please, we'll figure that out and I'll get with y'all, because that mission in Flint is going to mirror exactly what needs to happen with you in California. So you can go there and see how that's done, and then you can mirror it and do the same thing in California. So let's combine our efforts and let's finish this one up.
Absolutely. Can you post a link to some of these resources or places that people can help on the Slack channel? You don't have to do it right away, but that would be helpful. And that way I don't have to promote it with my mouth, but we can put it on the Slack channel. So I think that's awesome. I want to point out a couple of logistical things. If people are emailing questions to Anna Holder, we will be able to answer those later. Anna is suffering from a power outage this morning. So we're not quite sure if we're getting all the questions that came through email, but we certainly got all of the ones on Slack and then some of the ones internal to our chat. There's also a lag that I want to point out. So we're up to 3 to 4 minutes, it looks like. So some people may be thinking they're joining right on time, and it looks like we're running significantly later. So I just want to point that out, like, bear with us. This is part of the crazy world that we're in right now. But we're going to keep moving along here. So Moses, thank you for your presentation. You're going to be invited to be part of the panel discussion. But I would like to shift over now to the panel.
But I'm fine. I'm used to winging it.
I really appreciate that. And
I can see you though.
We can see you fine, and you look wonderful.
Well, I was going to say, if my hair is all over my head, it's your fault, Greg, because you worked me to the end.
I will take full responsibility, but it doesn't look bad at all. It looks beautiful. So you all look wonderful. It's great to see you this morning. So I'm going to just hand it over to you, LaDonna, but I want to make sure that I thank you, and I've done this before, but I really do appreciate getting to know you. I appreciate the call out from last year, and I appreciate the help. You've really, really helped us. You're a partner. It's not just another presenter. So I really appreciate that, and I want to thank you. So with that, take over your panel.
Okay. Well, thank you, Greg. And I just wanted to say, and good morning, everyone. I wanted to say it may be a little shift. I haven't seen Eric from Shoreline EJ on, and so I don't know if he's having difficulties or not, but we may either end it a little shorter if he doesn't log on in time, or we can engage with Mr. West, because he's got so many valuable stories to tell. I think everyone could benefit from that. So if you guys didn't mind a little switch and change, we'll, just kind of go back and forth.
We don't mind, and we'll try to do what we can in the background to locate Mr. Basin.
Okay. And so also, I believe Demetra was going to start with Kowitsan circles, and then I could go after her, and then because we plan on it being pretty brief, we wanted to engage with everyone.
Absolutely, absolutely. Good morning. Thank you, LaDonna, for including me in your projects and different programs that you've worked with. Thank you, Greg. And just thank you to all the California Water Data affiliates and everyone that's put this on. I am Demetra Bundy with Kowitsan Circles, a grassroots organization where we focus on tribal and African American lower income disadvantaged communities when it comes to environmental justices. I will say this: I'm not a scientist, but we have worked on several projects to help our communities. We focus on discovering and embracing the similarities and differences in our Native American communities. I am part of a Colorado River Indian tribe. A lot of my tribal members do live in California. I'm from California, but I've had family members that lived, in San Francisco area over 40 years. So California water and quality of it is very important to my tribal members as well. And so we've been doing different research and different projects when it comes to our native customs and cultures, where we are working to improve the quality of water and find areas where we can utilize natural resources. So I'm really impressed with Mr. Moses's information that he shared, and definitely looking forward to working with him and partnering with him on different things of that nature that he's working on. But we're looking at bridging the gap to identify and embrace weaknesses and fortify our strengths, and just kind of go back to the basics and draw out what we can to improve our water quality, our land quality. Ultimately, it goes back to people. All of the data that's collected, it ultimately, whether we're looking at ecosystems, whether we're looking at all different things, it ultimately goes back to people. And so that's where we are doing the research to bring that into our communities, because ultimately our communities have been ignored with the data that has been collected, and none of the programs have been working to make sure that our people, our communities are getting the quality of water that we need. And just from Mr. Moses's presentation, you can see that it's not just about water quality, but it goes back to life quality. It goes back to mental quality as well. And so that's what we want to look into, the natural element of it, and how it's affecting our people. Let's see. LaDonna, did you want to jump in on anything that you've heard so far?
No, just I know that there is some issues with the right to self-determination, as we've engaged with the tribes. We understand that is a very important issue. So I know you're kind of reserved in some of the things that you do share, but what really impressed me and really helped me getting back to my roots, my African roots, my Indian roots, and appreciating water that we cannot live without. And the fact that you've helped us see some alternative, non-traditional ways of cleaning water with, like, the baskets, right? Learning how to weave those baskets and doing things that people would think is witchcraft, as some people have said, as you shared with me, right? But at the end of the day, it cleaned the water without chemicals. And so that really impressed me.
Not only that, but just living in California, when as a child, I remember being able to drink out of the water hose. The water quality was that good. But now, we have to buy water. And that is just something that is unheard of. but it's something that we've had to deal with over the years. And, you know, when it comes to our children and our communities locally, we shouldn't have to be concerned about what happened in Flint happening here, but it is.
That's right.
You know,
Absolutely.
and I don't see the same outrage, you know, for that water quality in our communities. You know, we're constantly being ignored on these important issues. And that's where I believe working together with the water data quality, Mr. Moses, LaDonna, all of these minds, great meetings of minds together, you know, we can all come together and bring forth some action that's going to affect not specifically, you know, the ecosystem, but our communities as well. So yeah, thank you, LaDonna, for bringing that up, because we're always looking for alternative natural water cleaning elements. So it's not just about, like LaDonna brought up, the basket weaving, but it's the type of elements you use with that. And so we want to preserve that. We want to develop that. And that's where we need your help. We need your, you know, we need your resources to maintain and develop our resources, and ultimately extend the livelihood of our people. Let's see. There was basically, you know, like I said, you know, just our organization helps to advocate for the preservation of our natural resources, discovering solutions that our water issues, you know, what our water issues are, cleansing our water issues, making sure that we strengthen and utilize, and just go back to some of those basic things that we used to utilize, like Mr. Moses' examples as well. Because, you know, as you know, our communities, especially with the climate that's going on, our people are dying at a higher rate, especially on our reservations. You know, they don't have access to clean drinking water in this day and age. We're in 2020. That should not even be an issue. But yet the rates on reservations are steadily increasing with COVID, and having to be on lockdown and not be able to go out. And, you know, we've had to ship food in, we've had to ship water in just for them to have clean drinking water, you know. And so this is something that is near and dear to my heart, you know. And so I want to be able to work with people that, you know, we can develop these resources and be able to help cleanse our water and ultimately strengthen our people and communities.
Okay. So since I guess it's a panel discussion, Greg, you want me to just go into mine? And it's difficult because, of course, you guys, I'm not seeing myself, so.
LaDonna, I would like you to go into that, but I think Mr. West had his hand up, so he might have a question directly to Demetra.
Okay.
Hi.
Oh, yeah, I have some experience with what you're just talking about here, with the self-empowerment of a community. The two deployments of the large atmospheric water generator, and especially in the neighborhood in Flint, is put it on a piece of private property there at Saginaw and Marengo, and put it in the hands of the people and let them actually operate this piece of technology to make water. And you can see the change in everybody in the neighborhood. They have ownership of it. You're not coming in and just giving something. Everyone has to participate in it, from the security of the machine, then train the folks in the neighborhood how to operate the machine. It's empowering. You have the foundation of all that we are, and that's the water. And now they can this can be done across the board at any neighborhood. It can be done at any school. And then not only does I look at the technology as not the end all to be all. It's a tool in the arsenal. It doesn't replace anybody else. This fight is so big. You need atmospheric water, you need groundwater, you need reclaimed water, you need desal water. what we're going to face in the future is huge. This
Absolutely.
is one of the tools in the arsenal, the combined arsenal to fight a battle.
Hurry up, because I'm on. Sorry,
Yeah.
you guys.
And so the battle that you're going to fight in the neighborhoods or where communities have been disenfranchised is getting everybody to participate and having ownership of their own water, which lifts all boats. Lifts all boats. It's teaching the kids the 17 tenets of sustainability. You get 7 of them right off the bat just by putting the machine in. Self-empowerment. You could grow your own food, fruits and vegetables. You could, after a while, you produce enough water, you could start to export it out, which brings an income to the folks there. It's hydroponics. It's hydroponics. Right now, the biggest thing they're growing in hydroponics is marijuana. Geez, how many blueberries could you grow? Those little baskets of blueberries are expensive.
You are so right. I love how you said, Mr. West, how we don't lack water, but the water we're walking around in, and we just need to extract it.
Oh,
That was a good point.
here's you got to get really an example of how much water there is. When I was on the base and I had 3 on the military base stuck in the motor pool, I had 3 machines working. I made my own river. I made a river that ran down and flowed to another river. I had animals, I had wildflowers, I had my whole ecosystem.
Wow.
And the power on the base is all renewable energy. And then the soldiers came by and they were taking water away in the water buffaloes. Nobody wanted to drink the water in the building. Had people from the offices coming down every day getting bottles of water. And here I was sitting doing all this testing, throwing that water away. You can do the same thing in any neighborhood, anywhere. I've been working in a very flying under the radar, as to say. And now it's time to come out. And so what you're asking about for the neighborhoods here, even with the baskets and everything else that you do in the neighborhood, when I'm there in Flint and I'm at the machine, it's amazing how I have to pull in other people from the neighborhood who wouldn't normally come into the neighborhood.
And that's a big deal, because with my people, a lot of people we won't talk to you, not you per se, but a lot of people that, let's say, are in this community where you won't even get the door opened. They'll look out and see, no, I don't know you. And that's another barrier to being able to go into our communities and get the data we need and talk to people. I'll get let in, but someone else won't have that perception.
But Demetra, share your experience in the beginning, like even you going back to the reservations when I organized with you around water.
Even as a child, yes, now I'm widely accepted because everybody knows me, everybody knows my father, everybody knows where I come from. But if that's not your history, you aren't going to get the same reception. So even as a child, when I would go there, because I looked different than everyone else there, a lot of the children that were my age wouldn't come out and play with me. They would hide behind their parents or hide behind their grandmother or somebody like that. And so it made me kind of standoffish, like, why? But it was strange to me because I was looked at differently. And initially as a child, you don't know how to accept that, or you don't understand what's going on. Now I see it as an adult and didn't realize, even systematic racism extended, even there. But, times
and it's been kind of the same process. Oh, why is that happening? It's been kind of the same process in this water world, hasn't it been?
Absolutely. Just, we haven't been included in these discussions. And so this is a great opportunity to be included finally.
Right. So, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I said we'll be informal. So just tell me when I need to go into my thing, but I'm loving this interchange.
I think what we're seeing now with the cloak down in the United States, we're seeing what's behind the curtain, and all of us have continued to strive and work together in the scientific community and the educational community all throughout
Absolutely.
this great experiment of America. But today we're in a different place, and we have to continue to strive to do all what we've done in the past to continue to try and ensure that we work together in a fair and equitable manner.
And we need allies in this fight. You know, we need
Absolutely.
allies. We need allies that will actually focus on the need that we have in our communities. You know, just because we're focusing on a specific possibly area doesn't mean we're excluding anything else. And that's what I want people to understand. Just because we focus on this area doesn't mean we're excluding anyone else in this process.
That's right.
Definitely. Well, I'm a diehard member of the United States Armed Forces, lifelong.
Thank you for your service.
Hey, everybody thanks me for it. I had a blast. It was fun. Hey, so I'm a very inclusive in everything that I do. There's nothing that I need to change about how I behave or act. So I just continue to march on to do this. I have a question for you. Do you know the Tool River Indian Reservation up in Visalia?
I do not, but I have family in Visalia. I have family in Visalia, Needles, California, obviously San Francisco Bay Area, but.
Yeah, I was invited up to the Tool Reservation up there, Porterville. It's in Porterville. It's been a few years ago. Porterville. Been up there, and a gentleman that you have to be invited on. So Sonny James, he lives there, and they have a great source of water, but they also need more water in that area as well.
Okay, definitely. No, I'm not familiar with them, but I'm sure working with you, I'll be discovering a lot of their.
Y'all are in California, so if you run into Sonny James at the Tool River Indian Reservation, there you go. Yeah, him and I are pretty good friends.
Oh, good to know.
So maybe this is a good time for me to jump in, and then the folks that don't know who we are, as we move through the conversation, they'll be more familiar with what we're doing and how EJ Communities 411 Water 911 came to be. So what I want to introduce myself again, LaDonna Williams. I'm with a small community-based organization called All Positives Possible in the Bay Area. And we've been doing a lot of community organizing around water-related issues. As we know, that is very, very important because we cannot live without water. And before I go into it, though, I do want to say a special thanks to Greg and his team, Jay Davis and their team, my team that worked with us to pull this thing together, and the other presenters that's going to be coming behind. This was a long process, a long process, very interesting, and a lot of things I've learned along the way. So to you all and Mr. Moses as well, I want to say thank you, but I want to give a little brief history of how we got here. And that was last year I attended the same conference, and I noticed within for a couple of days, it was a 2-day conference, and there were only 2 African Americans that I identified as African Americans, and I was one of them. The other one, I believe, was on a panel. And so, as I do, because I'm a mom of 6, and I'm one of those that are outspoken, and I don't apologize for it. I do apologize. Sometimes I may inadvertently hurt people's feelings, and I don't mean to do that. But when I see things that feel not right, then I do speak out. And I think that comes from my roots and my history. And so I did that. There was a lot of great information there, wonderful things being learned, but I looked around and I didn't see people that look like me. So I slightly want to, as much as I love Mr. Moses, I have to disagree with him when he say we're all working together in this. And, you know, we are all working together, but there's definitely a difference. And I know he wasn't saying that it wasn't. I'm just saying that in this water world of science and data, clearly a missing component has been our disadvantaged, poor, broke communities that are struggling to have quality water. And the reason why I want to thank them, Mr. Greg and Jay, was the fact that when I called them out, they didn't take that that elitist approach, which is what we're used to dealing with scientists. And I'm just calling it the way it is. They approached me and said, hey, we hear you. And this is pre-COVID now. You know, everybody's on the bandwagon now because of COVID and rah, rah, rah. And yes, we're about, you know, inclusion. But they saw the need to do this before we even knew COVID existed, when they identified, hey, you're right. You know, what can we do to fix the problem? And so they invited me in the planning process and said, hey, what, here you go. Tell us what you want to do. What ideas do you have to engage more African Americans in those communities that have not been in this process to have a voice? What can we do? So we rolled up our sleeves for the last 7-8 months. I kept digging and looking, and I had saw some presentations because I had did some Vieca's work back in 99 and 2000 and actually went and visited that island. Mr. Moses' name came up and I started kind of watching. I didn't contact him right away, but I started kind of watching and looking at the work he was doing. I was like, oh my God, this is it. Because what we've identified, some of the issues in Vieca's and Flint and those areas are actually existing here in the Bay Area, in Vallejo in particular. Mm-hmm. You wouldn't think so, but also San Francisco, Sacramento, Rodeo, Richmond. We have some of the worst water that you could imagine. However, we trust a yearly annual report that tells us our water is okay. And we've had to learn things like, what do they call this? Crypto Garsorium. I know I'm mispronouncing it because I'm nowhere near a scientist or a water specialist when it comes to science, but I definitely am a specialist when it comes to communities and what is affecting our communities. But we have neighborhoods in Vallejo who is right now struggling with various chemicals in our water, this tetrachloroethylene and perchloroethylene from old gas stations and dry cleaners that's getting into the water. But they're telling us, you know, don't worry about it. We have some of the best water, you know, in the world. Yet there's times when we run our faucets and we've got all kind of unidentifiable colors and smells coming through our water. That tells us how important this water data is when it comes to including humans in these elements. The previous symposiums have focused on, I don't know symposiums with an S, but at least the one I attended last year focused more on the ecosystem, which is definitely a necessary, you know, the habitats, the animals, but it was missing a very important element, which was humans, and especially those of us with some of the worst water ever. And so we've been that invisible society or that invisible population that's been overlooked in these processes. And so, you know, when they said, hey, come on board, you know, I figured, yes, and I want to be able to get in all of the issues that are impacting my community, which I don't apologize for, but it's not at the exclusion of any others, because we joined in and we wanted them in to be able to speak for themselves like we're doing here. And so when you couple our horrible water with the present conditions where COVID has hit us and hit us hard. And boy, don't we know it, because look how we're engaging. We would normally be there in Sacramento in that wonderful building and being next to each other, being able to see body language and expressions and interacting on break. And we can't do that because of COVID. But not only have COVID affected us professionally and in these processes, but imagine how it has affected my Black community. And we get a double-edged sword, because when we say Black and we're specific to Black, people get real uncomfortable and edgy. It has to be Black and brown, Black and this, Black and that. Not that we exclude anyone, but if my numbers from my people are more than everyone else's and my folks are dying in record numbers, and I look at the quality of water in my people's neighborhood, if we're all in this together and we're all working in this together, I wouldn't have to be the one to call that out. Folks who are in these positions should be able to look around the room or look in these processes and say, hey, we're not identifying certain voices here. We're not identifying certain needs here, because science is huge and important. And this may be one of the times, because I'm just feeling it right now, but scientists are like lawyers to me. They speak their own language and they're in their own world. And it doesn't mean that they're trying to do harm, but they see things a certain way. But see, now COVID has changed that, and it's taken all of us out of our comfortable elements in how we have to approach things, how we have to do things. And if we're all in this together, we would be doing like Gary and, I keep mixing his name, is Greg Gearhart, and I want to call him Gary, so I really apologize, but he knows I love him. But I want to just say with Greg and Jay and them, how they took that approach to say, okay, so tell us what you guys think that you need. And what we needed was a platform first like this. If we go to Vieques, as you did, and I was there too on that island while these folks were protesting, and we were invited to a barbecue on that island where there was a fence line. Talk about fence line. They were a fence line from the Navy. And in the background, we're hearing this bombing. And I have real sensitive ears, so I happened to hear and feel it before others did. And I couldn't figure out why I kept getting this funny feel over my body, and I kept hearing something in the background. And one of the homeowner there says, "Oh, you noticed that?" And I said, what is that? And they said, "I could see the look on your face because you keep looking around." Well, sure enough, it was the Navy that was bombing. And they purposely brought us there during that time because they did the bombing exercises at a certain time. And you could literally feel like this different like heat come over the area. And then they ran some water. And when they ran the water, this water lit up from a match. That was the same. Yes. And it was the same kind of reaction to water that was ran in a certain area off Kiska Road in Hunters Point, San Francisco. Okay. Then you bring it down to Vallejo. And like I said, I'm gonna kind of be all over the place. So for folks that are watching, you know, I'm just in conversation and just trying to share with you, you know, what it's like, in our communities. And that is a fight. It is literally a fight for our water-related issues to be recognized. That is tied into our health, because if we already have compromised communities and our basic necessity of water, that's a God-given right, is contaminated by these sources, it is imperative that these processes like this water data science include our issues in these processes and resources, as Mr. Moses was saying he needed, as you're bringing out, Demetra, and as I've identified through these processes, that we need these resources, and we also need the platforms to be able to share our stories, not necessarily from a scientific approach. We need to leave that to the scientists, but we can definitely work together as a community science project so that we can come up with these solutions that are needed. So, you know, to just kind of wrap it up a little bit, we're definitely not all in this together at the same level. We all bring different expertises to the table, but we have to recognize the fact that our disadvantaged communities, and particularly African American, has been lost in these processes. There has been resources for other issues, from Native American to the immigration population. Those are being covered and addressed, and they comfortably talk with them about those issues. But when it comes to African American, it's a different reaction and a different approach. And so the fact that we're here says that agencies' ears are open, and the way that they have dealt with us in these processes, I give kudos to them, and am willing to work to move forward in this, and welcome, you know, the discussions to follow. So thank you.
Wow, thank you, LaDonna.
Absolutely.
So this is open. So if Demetra or Mr. West have any feedback or reactions to what LaDonna just shared, I welcome that. We also have some questions, but let's start with what you guys want to talk about.
I fully understand.
Go ahead.
I fully understand the importance of the water quality testing in our neighborhoods, and in all neighborhoods, but especially the African American community, as some of the worst contamination issues have been found there. And what I like to do is combine all the efforts of the water testing quality folks that I've had the opportunity to work with over the years and test the water in these areas independently of what's in the local area. And I can do that. I have technology that's federally approved, and I have great testing authorities here in Texas. I can't wait to work with y'all out in California and your testing authorities. And it's great. It's good to cross-reference information and data, because not only does that help to empower the researcher in comparisons of water quality from one area to the next, but it also shows the concern that the researcher has by sharing that information to the people in the neighborhood. And then I can come in and I can provide one of the tools in that arsenal to help with water, is such as what's going on in Flint right now. They've already, I like what they do up there. I'm on a private piece of property, so someone will jump out of a car and they'll run up and they'll say, "Oh, I just need to try your water." And they pull out the clear gallon jug with the little seal on it. And they break the seal and they get the water, they put it back on. And it's like, come on, I've been doing water quality testing for a long time. And they put another little seal on in the car and they're gone. And they let my contracting officer know that, you know, we knocked it out of the park on the water quality testing that they snuck up and did. But they don't want to, no one wants to do a benchmark up there. They don't want to ask me to say, "Hey, we want to do a water quality test." And I was like, "Okay, go test the water in that building. Let's compare the two." So that's not going to happen. But for the neighborhoods, LaDonna, I definitely would share all the information and water quality comparison test, and have everybody completely engaged, even if I had to mail everybody a water quality report. But then when you get it's a big, long report, and people will say, "Well, I can't send it to people because they won't understand it." You know, hey, let's all sit down. I'll explain it to you. Once I explain it to you, it's easy to understand. Just don't get the little readout, get the whole report. And that goes all the way back to part of educating everyone to learn these scientific reports and to engage people And the children see this and they say, well, hey, maybe this is what I want to do when I grow up. So don't hold back anything from anyone. I'll give you the full report, and then I'll explain you how to read the report. And then when people start to look up the chemicals in the report, then you can look up what the chemicals are doing or where the chemical came from. So just by getting the report, it opens doors to all types of research of where these petrochemicals came from that are in your water.
Well, Mr. Moses, we're about to start a tap water, drinking water project where in this region we're going to be testing folks' water. So we'll definitely be calling on you to, hopefully, if you have the time, because I know you're a busy man, but help us through that process as well.
I'll make the time.
Thank you.
And I'd love to come out there and work with you all on that. And I'll talk with the folks over at Southwest Research Institute, and also the folks up here at the LCRA that do the water quality testing here in the state of Texas. There's another short story when they came out to test, when I was trying to get this technology approved for the state of Texas. The guys from the LCRA, they were standing there. They jumped out of the truck and they asked me who I ticked off. I said, what do you mean? What do you mean? He goes, dude, nobody passes this water test. He goes, they're really testing you hard. So the reports that I posted on it's called FLAC, right?
FLAC.
Yeah, the water quality reports I tested on there. You're going to see stuff that you've never seen before that was tested.
Wow.
So when I come out to California with that same water quality test, I'll be looking forward to it.
Well, if you keep mentioning Texas partners in research, you're going to get an amazing amount of people reaching out from California, because there's no bigger competition between states than Texas and California.
California.
Very well done. You're going to get lots of people calling you as a result of this.
It's because there's so many people coming from California to here. And the first thing they ask when they're buying land all over the San Antonio area, up in the hill country, I say, where do y'all get your water from? And it's like, just drill a well. So yeah, folks in California are very finicky about their water. So, and there's lots of y'all.
We are.
We are. Yes, we are.
So LaDonna, I have a couple of questions for you.
Okay.
The first one is from Courtney Sue. She asked, and first she says, thank you for highlighting the inequities in water quality. And then she asked, for those of us who want to help out all positives possible, how can we do that? And we'll ask you to also, and maybe someone on my team can type it into the Slack channel, but could you give a little bit more about all positives possible?
Yeah, sure. We do have a website, so I will provide that in the comments section or provide it to you to share. So the work that we do, you're saying share, is that what she was asking, the work that we do?
She wants to know how to help, but I think it would also help us all to understand a little bit more about what you guys do.
Oh, okay. So we are a community-based, grassroots community-based 501c3. We work on environmental justice issues, particularly low-income communities of color, helping identify what the disparities and their inequities are. Water, of course, is one of the things that's been at the top of the list. Well, that and air quality. And as Kowitsan helps us to continually appreciate, this is a cycle. We can't do one without the other.
Right.
And in our communities, both are dire needs, and we're suffering. We have, we've just fought off a cement plant this last year from being built less than 800 feet from many of the homes and an elementary school. And we're now trying to fight to keep them from bringing in more gas and cargo coming through the Carquinez Straits. It's going to be additional last year that hit us. And so the work that we really need to be supporting, or if you want to support, is our organizing and education work, because we don't only just work in Vallejo, but we work up and down the Bay Area and actually cross sectors. That's how we identified Mr. Moses, to help bring him into these processes so that others could hear the fantastic work that he does. So the help that we would need is definitely technical assistance as well, for those that have that technical experience, because we really want to develop like a community science. I know there's lots of processes around that say they are, but we really need a process where communities can really engage with the water boards and the agencies who have the decision making related to our water. And we need to actually have that input in these processes, and not just words. We need actions and things that are going to really change the quality of water that we're drinking. So she can definitely donate. I believe our donate button is working. We're having lots of technology problems. Just like now, my camera won't work, and it's all zoomed out because we've been burning Zoom and Blue Jeans and webinar. It's like, oh my gosh, nonstop. But they definitely can donate to, our organization. And we also want to engage with folks too that are working on these issues.
So Donna, I have a question for you.
Yes.
All right, I'm not the kind of person to just kind of like sit around and just twiddle my thumbs, and especially right now, this is pretty serious, and the time for it's great to have the discussion, and I love that, but also too, when I sit here less than 30 minutes away from my factory where I build these machines, where I just jumped on a plane last week and flew up to Flint, Michigan, and just did a bunch of work up there. What we need to do, and we must do, is we must get you a machine out there to one location and have that machine start operating now, put that machine on solar power or put it on the grid or a combination of the both. Get to the engineers, water quality testing folks out there to see how this operates, test the water that you do produce, give that water away, do what you need with it, and start now. It takes money to do it. Let's just do it.
I appreciate that. Absolutely.
Someone's got to write the check to get this done. Let's write the check. Whoever can do it, let's get it done and get it started, because next year when it rolls around, I don't want to be sitting here discussing the same thing and fighting the COVID virus again, trying to get people to ship water into an area when we have a solution right now. The thing is, we just have to put our foot down and do it.
Well, we have a location in Richmond ready to go, and we let's talk. Absolutely. Yeah. And I appreciate that. You don't know how many lives you're saving in this Bay Area related to water.
We might even have a location in San Francisco.
Yes, but look what you do with this in this process. You get the most advanced machine out there. You've got all the engineers just sitting here chomping at the bit, wanting to go do this. You've got the water quality testing folks. We have a COVID virus where you got to have clean, bubbly, silky water to wash. We've got hurricanes about to come. We've got Native American reservations that need water.
Yes.
Let's just do it. Sit it there in California, put it together, have everybody come look at it, and get it done.
I'm on board.
All right, me too.
I'm on board.
I'm on board.
Yeah.
We were going to have one of your. We were so bummed when we went into this virtual mode because we were looking forward to you bringing one of your pieces of equipment and parking it.
Yes.
So let's make this happen. I'm committed.
Yes, man. Same here. I've got a big generator sitting up there in the 4th Ward in Flint, Michigan right now, and it's making water. And I'm trying to get the solar together to put on that to run.
Keep it running efficiently.
To it. Yes. And then I've got military units at different military bases and operations. It's time for this to be in your hands, your water quality testing folks' hands, and getting this done.
There we go. Thank you.
So I want to give everyone one last chance to sort of make some closing remarks. We're getting close to being back on time, which is amazing. And this has been an awesome conversation. But let's start with Dimitra. You've been a little quiet lately.
Oh no, I've just been enjoying everything that, LaDonna has said, Mr. Moses has said, and just having the honor to work with everybody and see how this comes together. Like I said, Kawasan Circles is all about bridging the gap, embracing our differences, and fortifying our strengths. And I truly believe that if we work together, that we can bring about a significant change in our communities. We're a grassroots organization. I've been working with LaDonna for years, and she has just opened my eyes to a lot of the differences in our communities, but at the same time, how we can still work together and grow together as well. So I'm excited about that. Definitely. Thank you.
Thank you, LaDonna. Actually, let's go with Moses, and then we'll close with you, LaDonna.
Okay.
Again, I'm absolutely honored that y'all had me as your keynote speaker today. It's been a dream ever since the very beginning of this. I'm sitting here in my home here in Texas, and I got to pinch myself sometimes. I started out begging people to listen to what I had to say. I riding my bicycle around because that was the fastest way to get from one office to the next instead of parking my car and jumping out and walking in and sweating. I'm a cyclist, so I rode my bike to all the different offices. They still tell the story here about me walking in my disco lizard outfit and to see a colonel. I wear the tight stuff on the bike speed, and so in getting that done and to getting to address the EPA. I'll be doing that in the fall, and the state of Texas, and y'all out in California, and all the different technical agencies that I get to work with, the folks at Southwest Research Institute. If I didn't do another thing in my life, just those things right there, and being able to address y'all, it's like a beautiful capstone that I couldn't do anything else to do above that. So I'm very grateful to be your keynote speaker and for all the great write-ups that y'all have had about this and your interest in this technology and this long, hard scrabble battle to get to this place. Thank you very much. Very honored.
The honor is ours.
Honored to have you.
And LaDonna, I want you to bring us home now. You've done all the hard work to get all of us here to talk about this. So no pressure, but bring us on home.
Thank you.
Yeah, I do want to say for other agencies that might be on here watching the process, I would say this here is a success of what can happen with a lot of blood, sweat, tears, and fighting, but with a goal of actually inclusiveness and actually coming together in these processes to make something like this really happen. And again, it takes dedicated folks who, sometimes may not have wanted to hear the difficult conversations, and it's not easy being called out. But they were called out, and in being called out, they rolled their sleeves up and did a call to action. And it was before it became trendy to do so. So I keep making that point because right now with the racial tensions and the issues that have come out, and rightfully so, because I can't say it enough, Black folks have just been ran through the ringer, and we've always been expected to be the bigger person while we're suffering and dying. And I can say the California Water Board through this process has supported the efforts, have been sincerely trying to figure out how they can step in and help these processes, and they've done that. So, while I'm beating up on them, I've got to give them a hug on that end as well. Because look at this, where we're here. This is a big difference from last year and the previous years. But, that's also to say, and I hate to have to say, but, we got to hug everybody, which we do. That goes without saying. But I'm just saying in this process, they saw a need and who was missing, and they did not hesitate to try and right the wrong. And so therefore I say thank you to them. I want to say thank you so much, Mr. Moses, for accepting, the invite and the invitation and letting me bug you. It didn't take a whole lot. The minute I explained to you what we were trying to do, you were like, hey, when, where, I'm there. I love you for that, because you saw also a need and unselfishly said, if I can come in and eliminate this suffering and save lives, I'm there. And you've done that. Demetra, the same thing with you, helping us understand the Native issues that are going on. And that's what this symposium is supposed to be about, for us to come together with these different views, experiences, especially life experiences, but to come together and hear those and embrace those so that we can come away better people. And I think, at least so far this morning, panel has accomplished that, and I have no doubt the next 2 days is going to do the same. But I just want to say thank you to you all, and all of the folks that are taking time out of their busy at-home schedules, because they've shut us down again, which they should have kept us shut down so that this stuff ain't raging out of control. But folks have their own agenda, but we all know to do the right thing, and we cannot place money over lives. And that's the climate we're in right now. But at least here, we're all coming together, getting this knowledge. And I just want to say thank you to all 800 or so people, Greg, that are watching. Thank you that you took the time to even want to hear us.
Absolutely. Thank you.